Hello everyone, today I'll be showing you how you would wire up your circuits as well as your different parts to have a fully functioning robot along with your code. And one thing I want to mention before we start is that on the Arduinos there are different pins that you could use. You don't have to use the same pin that I'll be using because there's a high level of customization. You can use whichever pin you want. Just make sure that when you are coding it, you can match up whichever pin goes to where so that you know what to code, and the code goes to a specific goes to the one part that you want. So we'll start off with just the basics parts of it. So as I was holding up before, this is the brain of the entire circuits, the Arduino Nano. And on the Arduino Nano, over here you have the digital pins. On the other side is the analog pins. And then here you have the VIN, which is going to be connected to battery, ground, and 5-volt, which is where you'll be connecting your sensors as well as motor drivers. And then at the top here, there is a USB port, which you will be using to upload your code from the computer to the Arduino Nano. The other thing would be on the breadboard that I have is the motor driver. So you have the different motors, control for motor A and motor B, as well as the int pins for control of the turning of the robot, as well as how fast it is going. And then on the top here, you have the power voltage pins. The next thing that we have is the ultrasonic sensor. And along with that, we have the IR infrared sensor as well. And when it comes to the wiring, there are 3 different types of wires. First of all, there is the male to female pins. So one male would be having the little metal pin and female is nothing. And then there's also male to male. And we will be using both types of pins. And there's also female to female, which is both have no pins on the end, and we probably won't be using these for now. Other than that, we also have the wheels, the 2 wheels, of course, and the motor I've already attached onto them. And then we have the battery connection. This will be going onto the 9-volt block battery, and this will be going into the Arduino Nano. And finally, last but not least, we have these 2 mounts for the motor so that when your robot is moving, the motors will stay in place and not just go everywhere. Okay, so we'll start off by wiring up the ultrasonic sensor. So if we take 4 female to male header pins, as you can see here, I have already attached it onto here, but pretty much you want to attach the end of it onto the ultrasonic sensor. And once you have done that, let me flip it around. There are 4 different pins coming out. VCC is going to supply power, trig is going to be sending the ultrasonic sound wave, and echo is going to be receiving it, and ground is going to go to ground. So you want VCC to the power, ground to ground, and trig and echo to digital pins on your Arduino Nano. So on the Arduino Nano, we want the digital pins, so I'll be using digital pin D2 and D3 for trig and echo, and then VCC is going to go to 5 volts while ground is going to go to ground. So I'm just going to wire that up really quickly. So we have VCC to 5 volts. And just one thing about the breadboard is that, as you can see on the 5 volt here, when you're putting the Arduino Nano on the breadboard, the side with the 5 volts should have a minimum of 3 different pins, because any pin along the same line is going to receive the 5 volts, and same with ground. So any row, you want 3 different grids in that row, because there's going to be 3 different things connected to Arduino Nano's power. So I'm going to put VCC into 5 volts, and the ground, which is the black line, to ground. And finally, the 2 different trig and echo is going to go to D2 and D3. Just like that. And that's your first part complete. Just make note of which pin you have connected it to so that later when you're writing the code, you can refer back to it. Next up, we'll be connecting the ultrasonic or the IR sensor. So IR sensor is pretty much almost the same. We have out, VCC, and ground. VCC and ground, of course, goes to the 5V and the ground, and the out is going to be receiving the signal, so it will go to a digital pin. And when you're building this, make sure that it's good that there are different colors for wires so you can like track easily where each wire goes to where. So in this case, my ground is green, and that will be going to ground on the Arduino Nano. And my VCC is brown, and that will be going into the 5V. And finally, the blue wire will be going into, the blue wire for out will be going into the deep digital pin number 4. Okay, so that is your 2 sensors done. The next thing we'll be doing would be to connect a bunch of wires onto the motor driver and the motor driver to the Arduino Nano. So we'll start off with the Arduino Nano. So the in pins are going to be receiving a range of different values into the Arduino so that it has a various speeds or various voltages. So the in pins will actually be going into analog pins on the Arduino Nano, which is on the, let me just focus, which is on this side. Okay, so for this, you would take 4 male-to-male pins and connect them to int 1 through 4. And notice that like these holes on this side are they're kind of blocked by the motor shield. So you could just really jank it in there, and like you could twist the wires a little bit, but still be careful. But bending a little bit, it's not gonna break. So I'm gonna take 4 male-to-male header pins and just place them into the 4 int pins. And make sure you choose like distinct colors so that you don't get mixed up which pin goes where. Okay, so int pins 1 through 4 are going to analog pins 1 through 4 on the Arduino Nano. So let me just do that really quickly. And again, like right now, as you can see, I have everything in the middle row of each pin, and you don't really have to have it there. It could be anywhere. So like right now, I'm kind of like, I don't have a lot of space left in the thing. It's like looking a little crowded, so I can move the pin to another different column instead. And I bended that wire a little bit, but that's fine. And then finally, int 4 would be going to digital pin 4, or analog pin 4, sorry. Okay, so those 4 pins, as I've said, are going to be controlling the speed of the, sorry, let me just focus. They're going to be controlling the speed, but there is still no power yet. And for the power, you want to connect, again, to the 5V and ground, but it's these 2 pins that are sort of sticking upwards from the thing. So because there are already pins sticking outwards, you want to be using the female to male header pin. So you would want this end to go on to these pins here. And again, the orange one, which is the plus, is gonna go into, damn, this is not really focusing because of the wires, but the orange wire is going to go to 5 volts on the Arduino Nano, and the yellow minus pin is going to go to ground. And finally, for the last thing, we have to actually connect motor A to motor A and motor B to the other motor. So the way that you do it is there are 2 different pins for each motor, and on each motor there are 2 different little pins there. So for this, you would want to take 4 male-to-male pins, male-to-male, and on the motor itself, you could connect the pins into the holes like that. You might have to like twist it around because it might not go in, and do the same for the other side as well. Or I'm taking another wire. Okay, and make sure that the 2 pins here, they're not touching, because if they're touching, then that's going to be a short circuit and your circuit is not going to work. And you would want to repeat the same process for the other wire as well. So one for this, and same for the other side. Just like that. Okay, perfect. So now you want to connect, it doesn't really matter which side, like on the motor here, it doesn't really matter which one goes to which pin, because when you're playing around with the code, if it doesn't work, then you could just always switch the 2 pins around, and or switch it and play it that way. But just make sure that the 2 wires on one of the motors goes to A and the other 2 goes to B. So in this case, I'm going to connect the purple and white wires to motor B or motor A. And for the other motor, I'm going to connect the yellow wire as well as the blue wire to motor B. And I understand that sometimes these wires here might come apart. So during the competition or right before, you could just glue gun this thing down when it's like already mounted onto your robot, or you can tape it, just secure it, make sure it doesn't come apart during the thing. And there you have it. That would be the full wiring of the Arduino Nano. Where you choose to place each part and is up to you. And as I said, where you choose to place each pin on the digital and analog pins is also up to you. Thanks for watching.